It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, reviews of Conflict, The Saintliness of Margery Kempe, and Tevye Served Raw. Plus, I recommend plays that I think you should see, and Leslie talks about upcoming plays. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. And it is lovely weather outside today.
Gorgeous day.
Yes. So, a good day to go see some theater in the park, which you have around the city.
Yes, the 12th night you're about to go see
one
that,
of
right?
these days, I hope so. But you don't have to go to the New York Shakespeare Festival.
No.
There is plenty around.
Parking lots
and parking lots and
cubby
what have you.
holes
And some of them you don't even have to wait the whole day for.
Right.
But we're going to start with a play that is inside a theater. The Mint Theater in fact, this is Conflict, another obscure play that the Mint has dug up and given new life to, and this is directed by Jen Thompson, and the play was written by Miles Melson. And this is, I think, a very timely play in that it involves two British politicians, one conservative, one liberal. It takes place in the socialist in this case. Yes, he's a socialist. Takes place in the 1920s. There are shades of Galvador's Best Man in that one candidate has something on the other.
Well, they both know each other, but one is very rich and one is very poor.
Right, and the rich one has information that could hurt the poor, but he declines to use it.
Because he's rich.
No, because not because he's rich, but because he feels it would be unfair, and he wants to win the election based on ideas. And these two are totally on the opposite side of the political spectrum. Each gets to make their case.
And there's a girl stuck right in the middle of all this.
Right. Rich girl, played very nicely by Jessie Shelton.
Whom we saw in Basic Instincts downtown, which was...
but no. The
Cruel.
Yes.
Cruel Intentions. Sorry.
Cruel Intentions downtown. Yeah, a very, very different role, except for the fact that she's still an upper-class girl.
Mixing it up.
A very different one. Bottom line, this play, I believe, has Shavian aspirations, but has neither the story nor the interesting characters that would populate a similar Shaw play.
Well, it comes down to who's going to win, the conservative or the socialist, and Malleson was a socialist, so he kind of tips the balance.
Yes,
because of his own.
You do know where the playwright's sympathies are. Jeremy Beck plays the socialist. Henry Clark is the conservative. Again, both give good performances. The standout, however, is Graham Malkin, who plays the girl's father, who is also backing Clark's conservative candidate.
The mustache and all kind of thing. He's wonderful.
Yes. It's really a wonderful production of a, frankly, mediocre play.
But it's the second play by Miles Malleson that they've done. I liked it a lot better than the other one that they did, which was the one about the guy who was having an affair and thought he was a great lover and blah, blah, blah. But I also am very excited about what's to come, Days to Come, by Lillian Hellman, a play that we've never heard of, at least I never heard of, from 1936, and it was her only flop. So, they really do find the oddest and most wonderful things there. So, but what would you give Conflict?
I would give Conflict a very generous 3 playbills.
Okay, I would go 3.5, but again, for the production as much as anything else. It's beautifully produced.
It is the production.
Yeah, beautifully
I think
produced.
that makes the play.
And Jen Thompson has become such a good director. I know we both like her work very much.
Yes, and the one thing I'll have to say, I did mention that the play is timely a little earlier. It's just a shame that we have politicians who disagree, and that's fine, but wouldn't it be lovely if they could be so cordial and open to
honest
the other's ideas
and
yes, as portrayed here.
It would be lovely, yes. Wouldn't it be lovely?
It would be, yes.
Speaking of lovely, here we have the Saintliness of Margery Kempe.
Well, that's not an adjective I'd apply to it, but
well,
all right.
Let me just say my piece, and then you can give your opinion. Margery Kempe was a real woman who lived in the 16th century, 15th century. She also turned out to be the first biographer, even though she was illiterate. She dictated her autobiography to some cleric or other, and it was taken down. This production is based on a 1958 play written by somebody named John Wolpe, and It was rediscovered by Austin Pendleton, who
Right.
really thought that there was a lot to be said, and I can see why, because Margery is a very prototypical feminist character, except that she wasn't very well liked. She had a lot of really nasty habits, including crying in public.
Is this the real Margery?
This is the real Margery,
Okay.
and they try to put all of that into the play, so you never know what Margery you're seeing. Is she the woman who claims to be a saint? Is she the woman who left her children and her husband? Is she the wife of Bath, who Chaucer wrote about, who also went on these pilgrimages? She is very fortunate to have lived in England at a time when there was such a thing as a mystic, because women were allowed to be mystics, and they were allowed to roam freely because they talked to God, and they even talked to the devil. 200 years later, she'd have been hung or burned as a witch in Salem. If she lived in France, she would have been Joan of Arc, who also talked to saints, and also was burned at the stake.
About 50 years after Joan of Arc?
She was
Give or
not
take?
quite. She died 7 years after Joan of Arc was burned at
that's
the
all.
stake. That's all.
Okay.
She lived to be 65, however, and had 14 children, all of which is talked about in the play. It rams a lot of fact into what it takes off to be loosey-goosey and giddy, and it just kind of doesn't know what it wants to be, and it's very difficult to follow for me. It was, I was happy to be introduced to Margery. I went back and read about her and thought, wow, what a character. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody wrote a play about her, because...
That's my, after hearing you talk about her, I kept thinking, wouldn't it be nice
Right.
if somebody wrote a play about
Right.
her? This is playing at the Duke on 42nd Street,
Right.
by the way. And because this is an absolutely terrible play. I mean, I kept thinking she wants to be a saint, good, do to her what they did to St. Joan.
well.
And this is a horrible woman, at least as portrayed in the
As
play.
portrayed.
First thing she does is she leaves her husband and her children.
Yes,
Plus,
that's it.
she takes the family savings. In real life, apparently, she was a wealthy woman.
Right.
Here, she is not. So her husband ends up being bankrupt and destitute. Her children grow up to be wanderers or whatever. She is the most annoying woman
She is
you
annoying,
will ever
and
see.
she's very self-serving. It's all
Yeah.
about, I want to be a saint. I
Right.
kept thinking of Kim Kardashian. If
Oh, yeah.
there'd been a camera, she would have been taking photos of herself
It's a
doing all
shame
of this.
she was born about 500
Yes.
years too early, because this is a perfect candidate for a reality show.
Right.
And the only reason she doesn't do a sex tape is because
Well,
they didn't have cameras back
Not
then.
only that, she also did a celibacy thing with her husband.
Well,
so,
you know what? Again, here as portrayed,
Yeah.
she'll be a saint if that serves her purposes. She'll be a slut if that serves her
Well,
purposes. But
I must say that she was very well played by
that would be Andress Nichols, yes.
Andress Nichols, who also was in Sense and Sensibility and played St. Joan in a Bedlam production, which we didn't see, and I wish we had, because it might have been better than the one we did see. But as far as this goes, again, all over the place. Not anybody's
it's-
fault, except the original playwright, I think, did the disservice.
Well, this is John Wolpe, and
Yeah.
yes, he did her a great disservice. I recall seeing a play about Hannah Senesh, who was
Right.
an Israeli heroine, and I didn't like the play. And then a few years later, I saw another totally different play about her, which I said, okay, she finally got the play she deserved. Maybe someday Margery Kempe will get the play she deserves, but this is not it.
It'd be
Here,
interesting.
she is a terribly annoying, unsympathetic character, and I kept thinking, oh, God, why doesn't
Played originally by Frances Sternhagen in a cast that included Gene Hackman, and Charles Nelson Riley, back in 1958. Imagine that.
quite an impressive
Right.
cast. Still, I don't, and you know what? Maybe they would have made it a little more tolerable.
Perhaps.
But this is really, and
So, what would you give it?
I would give it 1. And I would say just stay away from it. Go read her biography if you
Yeah,
want to find out
yeah.
about Margery Kempe. Stay away from this play.
1 is awfully low, Charlie, but
But accurate in this case.
pretty accurate. Yeah, I'll give it 1.5. They had nice costumes. And Tim Doyle did a nice job in doubling in a bunch of different roles.
Okay, fine.
So, okay.
Fine.
And speaking of doubling and tripling.
This
and
is Tevye Served Raw. But
Garnished with
with
Jews.
Jews.
Yes, I
Yes,
love
I didn't
that.
find out that part until,
and it's written by Sholem Aleichem, who
well, it is based on the stories of
Right.
Sholem Aleichem.
Sorry, you're right.
And it is adapted by Alan Lewis Rickman
Right.
and Shane Baker, Shane being a very nice guy.
Yes.
It is done in Yiddish, either with...
Well, it's done in English, but they tell
No,
stories
it's
in
done
Yiddish.
in
When they
Yiddish.
speak it, the whole play is not in Yiddish. He comes out and speaks to us in English at the top, and they do several
well,
stories.
when they introduce it, yes. but everything, all the sketches are performed in Yiddish. Basically, in the Tevye sketches, which are more dramatic, you see subtitles. In the comedy sketches, they are immediately translated. Yes, sometimes there'll be an English narration introducing the sketch.
I guess maybe that's what confused me, though I seem to remember them speaking in English. But
well, again, that was Rickman translations. And in fact, and ironically, sometimes the translations by Rickman are more interesting than the sketch themselves, because some of these sketches go on just a little too long.
One of the problems with the way it works is if you have person A and person B speaking in Yiddish with person C in the middle translating, you have to hear everything twice, and that gets to be tiresome. So somewhere along the way, that I think that the except that as you say, Rickman's portrayal of it is really very interesting, but it just makes everything longer.
Right. To me, and
it was only a 90-some-odd minute play.
To me, the problem wasn't that he was dragging it out. I just felt some of the sketches themselves were too long. The opening sketch, two men talking on a train, could have been cut. 2/3 of that could have been cut away. One of the interesting part, though, at least for me, was the Tevye sketches. Now, Tevye is, of course, well known to us from Fiddler on the Roof, and many of these sketches cover the same ground that Fiddler does. But you'll think, oh, well, I know this story, but they will add aspects to it that you didn't see in Fiddler, or they will take a different approach to the tale. I think some more accurately reflecting Shalom Aleicham's original stories. So it's a very interesting addition to, especially if you're not familiar with the original stories. And all in all, I found it to be an enjoyable. This is a very sparse production. It's basically three talented actors. Yelena Shmulinson is the sole female in the character, even though in the cast, although she does end up playing a male at certain
points. Multiple characters.
And they're outgoing, and they've got heart, and they're giving it their all. And it's a pleasantly enjoyable evening.
Well, it's interesting. The costumes are Rickman not only translated but also directed, which is very hard to do when you're in something. And the costumes are attributed to George Spelvin. We all know that George Spelvin is the old theatrical tradition of somebody in the company didn't want his name or her name known, so they put down George or Georgina Spelvin. So we don't know who did the costumes. But they were fine. They were adequate. They were serviceable. The play was serviceable. It was fun. I certainly had I'm certainly glad I went. I'm really looking forward to the Yiddish Fiddler on the Roof that we're about to see at the National Yiddish.
Volksbühne.
Well, it's the National Yiddish Theater / Volksbühne.
Okay.
It's got a.
That will be on a later show.
And that'll be on a later show. So, what would you give this?
I would give this 3. I think maybe 3.5, taking into consideration what it is.
Right.
And you won't find a more enthusiastic cast.
and you certainly it's worth an afternoon if you have time. It's a very short run.
Yes.
It's basically a showcase.
Right.
I
This
think.
is at the Playroom Theater.
Yes, on 46th Street.
Okay.
And now we're going to move into what you feel we should see if
well,
the summer's here.
This is people ask me, gee, what should I see? So, a couple of suggestions. First, if you want to see a musical, my first choice would be My Fair Lady.
Couldn't agree with you more.
This is a wonderful production of it, even if I think Higgins sings a little too much rather than talks through his songs. But, I honestly think this is the greatest musical ever written, bar none. And this is a really great production, long overdue on Broadway. Yeah. It's at Lincoln Center, the Vivian Beaumont. That would be my first. The play I would recommend, and it's an easy one to remember because it's got play in its name. This is The Play That Goes Wrong. And I really feel comedies are so underrated by the theatrical community. We really don't get enough excellent comedies on Broadway. And this is the rarest of all. This is a farce. And it is hilarious. This is kind of an Agatha Christie meets Monty Python type situation. If you liked Noises Off, this is Noises Off squared. And if you can stop laughing at any point, you just sit back and you have to admire just the stagecraft. So much, the way the scenery breaks.
Well, the fun of it is that they're supposed to be amateurs to start with. They're just an amateur theatrical group in London. or in a suburb, and so they expect some of the things.
Well,
to
they're on
go wrong.
Broadway. That has been moved to Broadway.
Yeah, but
Or-
they're
or
not.
to-
That's not really what they are. They're really professional actors.
yes,
The,
yes.
the,
well,
the, the game is that's what
yes,
they're doing.
that's what they're supposed
so
to be.
they just fall down from the beginning. Just walking on stage, they fall down. You know.
Right.
So there's a layer upon a layer upon a layer of.
But you have to admire the timing,
Absolutely.
the design of the set,
Absolutely.
the backstage crew, because you could really get hurt very
Absolutely.
badly, and it just comes together so
Absolutely.
beautifully. The play has been extended to January. I am happy to
Yes,
say.
they were going to close, and it
It's
had been running for a
so
long
rare
time.
to see something on Broadway like this. So rare to see something anywhere
Definitely
like this.
worth-
It is a
worth
unique
seeing.
and hilarious production. Okay, a musical that Leslie really liked, and in fact the theater community really liked,
Yes,
but
you got
I
10
didn't.
out of 11 Tonys. So,
And that's The Band's Visit, which I really wanted to like. I loved the idea of the play, which is an Egyptian band that finds themselves stranded in an Israeli town. It swept the Tonys, and
it's
the
not
little
a
musical that
traditional
could.
musical. Tony Shalhoub, who won a Tony, doesn't sing.
Yes.
But I think they
And
gave it to
he
him
won
because
the
his name
Tony
was
for Best
Tony.
Actor.
Yeah,
For
they gave him-
Best Actor in a musical.
Right. But the point being that the Broadway community welcomed this musical with open arms, and I think
Yeah.
that's really lovely that they did that.
Yeah. Again, it's nice that a small show can be so successful, but you know what? I saw it off Broadway. I saw it on Broadway. I really wanted to like it because I love the idea.
Well, are
of
you
it.
recommending it
But
or
no,
not
I'm
recommending
not.
it?
No, you
Oh,
are
I
recommending.
see.
No,
Okay.
this is the show
All
that
right.
I am not recommending, but you are.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Show that lives up to its hype. Now, I admittedly have not seen this show since it's opened, but this is The Lion King. And this is the show that made Disney accepted by the theater
Well,
community.
and he should get down, if he were alive, and kiss Julie Taymor's feet, because it's really what Julie Taymor did. None of his shows since then, none of the Disney shows since then, have come anywhere near what Lion King had to offer. Because Lion King, it totally reinvented the musical. It put the puppetry into play.
It used something that has existed for years and just made it work so
And
good.
that's Julie Taymor's background,
It's
and
the
that's what she
pinnacle
brought.
of, I think, what she's done thus far.
Yes, because she's
I would
not
love
been
to see
able
her.
to-
I would love to see her top it.
She's been trying to.
Yes.
She tried with Spider-Man and a couple of other things. that
Yes,
didn't
but
quite
you know
do it.
what? Even we can forget about Spider-Man by seeing The Lion King. Show that I think is overhyped. Now I have to qualify this. I think this is a wonderful show. I don't think it's the second coming of My Fair Lady, and I don't think it's worth $800 a ticket, and that is Hamilton.
I agree it's not worth $800 a ticket, but I do think it's worth a seeing. And I think if
Oh,
you have the
definitely.
time, because it's going to be
Definitely.
around,
Yeah.
you get a ticket now, you might see it next summer. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. Or maybe you'll see it in the spring. But
It ain't
is-
going anywhere.
It is worth seeing.
Absolutely.
And it is something to bring your children to, because they will get it long before you or I will. I mean, I had to listen to the album before I could hear all the lyrics. But because they went by too fast. And I bought the book and I read some of them and I went, oh, that's what that was. But it didn't matter because I was so caught up in it. I thought it was brilliant. I'm a big 1776 believer.
Yes,
and
as am I.
add Hamilton to that as a way to teach this material to a new audience.
Right.
To a different audience.
Again, you know, we had been talking about this. You had mentioned 10-year-olds. I'm not sure I'd want to bring a 10-year-old, given Hamilton's infidelities to his wife and how that's presented in the play. No?
No, I'm just thinking. They see this on TV, I can't imagine.
Maybe.
The president's on tape right now, paying off somebody. So
Yeah, well,
it's in the zeitgeist.
I don't know too many 10-year-olds who follow the news. So,
Well, I wish
you know,
they would.
and you've got a point there, but again,
The point is, they would be able to get the lyrics
point
faster
is-
than you or I would.
I'm not so sure about that. But again, I love the show. I don't think it's the next My Fair Lady. I think it should be seen, and and I'm glad it's doing so well.
I agree with you about the overhype,
feel it's
but it
just
does
been-
live up to its hype. It really does. For me.
Not to me, and again, not because it's just been so hyped. You know,
Well-
if it had been like this hyped, I'd say yes,
Right.
but it's like that hyped.
We're about to embark on a series of brand new plays that neither of us has seen.
But wait, I have one more.
Oh, you have one more.
I have
Sorry.
one more.
Okay.
The show to see if you can't get tickets to Harry Potter
Oh,
and the
yes,
Cursed
right.
Child, or you don't want to spend a fortune on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and that is Puffs.
Right.
This is kind of a fan fiction play based on the Harry Potter books, and it's the Harry Potter story, all 7 of them, the original, not the Cursed Child, told through the eyes of a student who's never, not part of the J.K. Rowling books, in the Hufflepuff house.
Okay, well, I don't
And-
think we need to tell much more
Right.
about it, except to say that it's playing at New World Stages, so the tickets are affordable. It's a really fun show. It
Yes.
really, really is. And if you insist on seeing the Harry Potter show, you can get away with seeing Part 2 without seeing Part 1, because Part 2 recaps all of Part 1 in the first 10 minutes, like a telenovela. And it's a lot cheaper than trying to get tickets for 2
And
of those
I
Broadway
honestly
shows.
think it's by far the better of the 2,
Well.
because play-wise. Okay.
Okay, so
Speaking of shows that don't live up to the hype, but
well, we
that's
don't
another
know.
story.
I mean, I don't know because Harry Potter or
Harry Potter again.
oh, I see what you
Decent
mean. Okay,
show,
yeah.
but
Right.
not to
No,
me.
definitely not.
To me,
yeah,
not.
I know. Okay. So there are 4 new shows that
Okay.
I wanted to talk about that are coming to Broadway. And so we don't know that much about them, so I can basically tell you who's involved. More Tony power than I have seen in each of these shows. So the directors, the writers, so let's get to it, and the stars. So let's get to it. The first one is Head Over Heels. It's based on, I'm laughing because it's based on Philip Sidney, who was a British poet of the 16th and 17th century, something like that. On his thing called Arcadia, which is a story about kings and queens going on a pilgrimage. I can't believe that this is what, and they're using the music of the Go-Go's. It's directed by Michael Mayer, who directed Spring Awakening. The music is arranged
Go-Go's.
by, even though it's by the Go-Go's, it's arranged by Tom Kitt, who did all the music for Next to Normal. He both writes and arranges. These are the Jeff Whitty, who won a Tony for Avenue Q. So
He wrote the book.
Jeff Whitty wrote the book here. So what you have is it is 18th century, yes. What you have is a cast that includes Rachel York, who was in Victor Victoria, Jerry Kushner, whom we saw in Paramore, and a very large cast of a bunch of people who I don't really know, but some of whom may become
But we
stars
look
as a
forward to
result of
getting
this.
to know them.
Right. But in the Go-Go songs include things like We've Got the Beat, Our Lips Are Sealed, and the one that I particularly love is Heaven is a Place on Earth, which is now the new progressive or whatever that's called insurance ad. So, so that looks interesting. Straight White Men is not a musical, it is a play. It stars Armie Hammer, the incredibly handsome Armie Hammer, Josh Charles, and Kate Bornstein, who's
Josh Charles from The Good Wife.
from The Good Wife. And I think Kate Bornstein, who I think maybe the first trans woman I ever heard of. So anyway, that's what's, and it's Christmas Eve. 3 adult sons and their dad are celebrating with trash talking and Chinese takeout, and then something happens that interrupts their holiday. It's a hilariously ruthless look at the classic American father-son drama. That's the way they put it out.
Okay.
So I can't imagine anything being hilariously ruthless, except if Conor McPherson writes it, then it might work. So it's a white Christmas. White Christmas like you've never seen before, because they are, after all, straight white men.
Indeed.
So that sounds fascinating.
Nice to see a minority like straight white men represented on
Right.
Broadway.
And this is the second representation at the Helen Hayes by the Second Stage Theater. So, and it's written by Jun Kim. I have stuff here and I don't have everything. Getting the Band Back Together is by Ken Davenport, who's a Broadway producer, and he did Once on This Island and The Play That Goes Wrong and Groundhog Day and just a bunch of, it's only a play and blah, 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 and Kinky Boots. So he won a bunch of Tonys. And there's also a little theater on 45th Street named after Ken Davenport. So this is about a guy named Mitch Papadopoulos who always wanted to stay in rock and stay with a band, and instead he went and got a job, and he did all kinds of things. And now he goes home to New Jersey to his mother, Mary Lou Henner, and decides that he's going to get the band back together. Now, and there's a contest for the best band, and I'm thinking to myself, did nobody see Bandstand? Except this one is Pretty Woman. So we know what that show is. And so in the role originally played by Richard Gere, we have Andy Carl. And in the Julia Roberts role is Samantha Barks, whom we saw in Les Miserables.
I pity the movie.
I pity the...
I pity anyone who has to follow Julia Roberts in that role.
Absolutely. And also in the cast is Andy Karl's lovely wife, Orfeh, and Jason Danieli is also in the cast. It's directed and choreographed by Jerry Mitchell, who again has a slew of
Now, is this an original score?
It's an original score. And again, several of those people, I mean, Andy Karl is a Tony winner, Jerry Mitchell is a Tony winner. I think they're giving themselves a tremendous task. If they make it, it's going to be brilliant.
Yes.
If they don't, it's going to be deadly, and we're never going to know. We're going to see it. We haven't been invited to this one yet. We've been invited to all three of the others.
Okay, I'm sure we will get into Pretty Woman.
Oh yeah.
And I certainly enjoyed the movie. And again, I wonder if they will use the title song from Pretty Woman, etc.
That'd be interesting because in several plays have used songs from
Right.
the movie and then gone on to have an original score. As
Right,
well.
right. And I mean,
People are going to expect
given,
that
yeah,
song.
given it's like when they did the Addams Family, they had
Right.
to
Right.
at
Well,
the beginning.
it could be like an overture or something. It could
It
just
could be.
sitting down music or something
It
like
could
that.
be.
So that's it. Those
So
are the
there's
shows that
quite,
are coming
quite
up.
a bit, quite
August,
a bit to look
July,
forward
August,
to. Yes,
right.
yes. And that is our show for this evening. And when you go to these nice new shows that are opening, look for Leslie and me, us too.
on the aisle.